Hello and welcome to Cogs of Community, Rotary Halifax Harbour. This is your inside look at the projects and people making a difference in our community. Today, we're diving into our strategic plan and how we're turning strategy into action. On March 13th, 2024, we held a club assembly led by Louisa Horne, an expert on irresistible Rotary clubs. Louisa guided us through exercises to transform our strategic plan into concrete actions. We've edited the 90-minute assembly down to a 35-minute video and podcast, making it easy to catch up. You can find the video version with slides on our YouTube channel. You can also find our strategic plan on our website. Look under the About menu or the Member Info and Tools page. Now let's hear from our club president, Godfred Chongatera, as he kicks off the assembly, followed by Louisa Horne and our members in action.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Rotary Club of Halifax Harbour Club Assembly. Today is the second club assembly. One was held, I believe, last year, and so welcome to today's club assembly. So today, basically, what is going to happen is we don't have an agenda, but we do have an agenda. And so sometimes in meetings, you may have a single item on the agenda. So we may well end up with a single item on the agenda. But I guess there'll be opportunities for people to, participate. So today we're going to be focusing on the nuts and bolts of our strategic plan. As you can see, from strategy to implementation. So as we said before, it's not enough to do a strategic plan. The next step is to see what we do with that. Otherwise, it will just be a document gathering dust. So our own PDG, Louisa, I know she has refrained from using that term. She refrained from using DG, but I've taken the liberties to say our own PDG, Louisa Horne, is going to be leading us in this endeavor. So she's going to be helping us to discuss how we're going to make our strategic plan grow wings and legs, walk and fly. Otherwise, we won't know where it is. So I'm not going to talk much. I am going to respectfully cut Louisa loose on that. So without much ado, I invite Louisa to lead us in this. Thank you.
Thanks, Godfred. And as is often the case when I'm at Rotary events, they give me these. I have to use an alternative method because I can't have my hands held. So sometimes that works, and hopefully the sound is okay. And if the sound is not okay, you can let Tom know. So I spent a lot of time talking about strategy in Rotary districts and clubs around North America. And so I'm really pleased to have the chance to be doing some of that here. And I wanted to remind you of a couple of things about what we've done under Chris's leadership and others in looking at a strategic framework for the club, which was the first effort to do this after we had the merger of the two clubs and had the opportunity to think about our mission statement to serve communities and conserve the environment and advance goodwill by connecting with other passionate, like-minded individuals, partners, and organizations. So that's a great mission that holds us together. And then we have a vision statement that in fact is the vision statement of all of Rotary International. And quite often I like to make sure that people know it. So without looking at the screen, could you say that vision statement? Anybody rhyme that off? Not a good start, is it? We need to be able to do that. We also, of course, have guiding principles. We have a 4-way test, which I won't test you on, but we know that. We have areas of focus. What are some of the areas of focus we have? Environment, thank you. Water. Yeah. Peace and conflict management here. Maternal and child health. Somebody online? Infectious, maternal and child health, like that, yeah. Any others? Community development, maybe. Community development is one. Okay, so we have that as part of our context. And then we have avenues of service. What are some of the avenues of service that form the context for our thinking around what we do and the tactics that we might want to have? Anybody remember any of the avenues of service that we have? Vocation is one. Vocational service. Club service. Community service. There's one. International service. Great. You got them. And one more. Youth. Thank you. Youth. Excellent. You got them. You got them all. So we've got all those things to provide our context. The avenues of service, the areas of focus, and the guiding principles. And those are the same for every Rotarian around the world, right? Every Rotarian. And when you visit Rotarians and Rotary clubs in other countries, those are their context as well. So keep those in mind as we continue. So there's this thing about being irresistible. So I've been talking about this irresistible club idea for a few years, and it's kind of fun that now it's become a bit of a thing globally. And it's now a global message, and the incoming Rotary International President is talking about clubs being simply irresistible, and all of the district governors for next year are talking about being irresistible as well. So that's kind of a fun thing that this has taken off, and it's important as we think about what we're going to do tactically. What do we mean by something being irresistible? So I usually say that something's irresistible if you can really not resist it. It's so compelling, it's so magnetic that you just have to do it. And I use the example when I travel to other places to say, I happen to be a member of a club that meets at 7:15 on a Friday morning. And in the winter, it's dark, it's snowy, I've got a bit of a drive. I have a choice to make every single time. Am I going to stay home? And now I could stay home and do it online, sure. But am I going to stay home or am I going to venture out? Is it so compelling and attractive that I'm going to make the choice to leave the other possibilities that I have and do it? Is there a sense of not wanting to resist that, to make that happen? That's what makes an irresistible club. We also have this wonderful research that's been done by Deloitte on irresistible organizations. And they did this research to look at what does it take for an organization to attract and keep employees more than others? What would they look like if they were irresistible? I don't know who had the word used first, but anyway, Deloitte uses it too, so I'm happy with that. And these are the 5 things. Meaningful work. So for Rotary, that means meaningful activities that we do as part of the organization that we support. Supportive management. Critical to have leadership and people that are making things happen in a way that's supportive for others. And then I love the middle one, fantastic environment. They don't say a good environment or a positive environment. They say a fantastic environment is necessary for an organization to be irresistible, any workplace to be irresistible. There need to be growth opportunities. Certainly we have that within Rotary for people to move into new roles, and there needs to be trust in the leadership. So if all of those things are in place, we have a pretty irresistible organization, whether it's a place to work or a place to volunteer or a place for any activity that we're involved in. I would suggest that those things are pretty important because we have lots of choices about how we spend our time and what we do. And I feel like we need to be always thinking about making sure that those organizations are irresistible. So keep that in mind for the next little part of the discussion. And then I tend to focus on taking a strategic plan to the next level, and that's what we're doing tonight, to say it's great to have a strategic plan, you have to have that, but now we have to start doing. And so strategic doing is a process, there we go, that comes from Purdue University that's been used around the world in different kinds of organizations to say, how do we bring a strategic plan to life? And how do we not have it gather dust? How do we make sure that we're actually making things happen? And the system that they've developed is called strategic doing, and it focuses on 4 different questions. What could we do? What should we do? What will we do? And then what's our timeline? And the standard one is 30-30, meaning what are we going to do in the next 30 days? And then when you go out 30 days, you say, what did we accomplish in the last 30 days that we said we were going to do? And what are we going to do in the next 30 days? So we're going to work through a bit of a process using those things. Now, we have 4 action areas, action priority areas that align with, again, Rotary around the world. And the absolute focus of the incoming Rotary International President, Stephanie Urchik, is to live these priorities. She, in fact, chaired the Strategic Planning Committee of Rotary International when these 4 things were defined. And so the first is, of course, around impact. And I want to focus on these actions that were identified. And tonight you're going to go to the next level with those actions to look at the tactics. So impact is the first priority area that was identified. And we talked about project management, measuring our impact, strengthening our communications, and recognizing or having membership recognition of different types. Those were the things that were identified as part of this planning process that we now need to take to the on-the-ground do-it level. We talked about expanding our reach. That's the second action item. And so some of the things that came up then were around corporate membership, whether or not we wanted to move forward with that, flex opportunities, flex pack, different ways of looking at attraction. Of course, our youth and young adults, Rotaract and Interact, alumni, and looking at engagement were the things we talked about for that second priority. Third priority, focus more on engagement, partnerships, volunteers, widen the scope of the communities we serve. And then there were 4 A's, principles around 4 A's, attraction, appreciation, attachment, and attrition, to think about those as the third one. And then finally, the fourth one was around being adaptive and increasing our ability to adapt, and the specific actions looking for fresh opportunities, more paths to leadership, room for more diversity groups, and simplifying club operations with technology and having clear processes. So those were quite a few actions that were identified through the process that we went through in the last round of strategic planning that are fantastic for us to now say, okay, how are we going to make that happen? So the first part of strategic doing, which you're going to be working on in a minute, and we've got enough people online to, how many are there at the moment? Tom, 10, but that includes like 3 of us, I think, so 6 or 7. So perfect, we have a group online and we have 4 groups in the room. And we're going to look at a framing question that gets us started with this type of strategic doing conversation. And the framing question is, imagine that this Rotary Club is the most irresistible service option in our area, and we have to define our virtual area as well. So for what we are the most, imagine, irresistible service option. We have awesome leadership and governance. We have great culture. We have fantastic, remember that word, partnerships. We're making meaningful impact. Imagine that all of that is true. Your question that you're going to talk about for the next little while is around what that looks like for the action list that you have for that particular, for the particular area that I'm going to give you. There were 4 priorities, so we're going to have 4 tables, and the group online will be looking at one as well. Look at those actions. Maybe there are ones you need to add, but you're going to take it to the next level and think about, okay, what needs are we addressing and what tactics could we use to make those things happen? If those are the right actions that you have for your priority area, how do we make them happen? That's your task. For the next 10 minutes is to look at the action items for your priority area, 1, 2, 3, 4. And online, we're going to have you start with number 1. So you're looking at priority number 1 around impact. And look at those action items and drill down to what are the tactics that will make those things happen, or what others need to be there. If you've thought of other things since then, what others need to be there. So 4 different conversations should be happening about the 4 priority areas, and your task is to look at the tactics on the ground. What are we going to do to make that priority area come alive in an irresistible club? Pull this conversation to a close. People online as well. I'm hoping that conversation is happening there. I can't follow both, unfortunately. So here's what's going to happen now. Half of the people at your table need to scatter to other tables. Okay, somebody, the note taker should stay put. A couple other people can stay put depending on the numbers at your table, but everybody else needs to scatter to other tables. So here's what's going to happen now. So about a few people scattered, so that's good. So now here's what's going to happen. The people that were at that table before and the note taker are going to do a little summary for the new people of here's what our task was and here's what we've come up with how could we make this happen? What, how could we implement this? We're going to have one more round of how could we with this new group of people, right? So the people that are there are going to do a little update and get the new people's reaction. The people online are going to move to the next one so that you have item 2 to deal with, but everybody here is still 1, 2, 3, 4. So you do a little update. You've got some new people. Again, how could we make this happen? How could we live these action items very tactical on the ground? What could we do? What could we do? Go for it. 10 minutes. Next piece of this, and we're going to have some people move again, but now we've got to get to the point of implementing some of these things that you're talking about. So we're going to have half the people move again, right? Ideally, the people that stayed the last time will move this time, but somebody then has to have their notes. And people that haven't moved absolutely need to move, go to a different table, but keep your notes with somebody and move to another table. And this time, you can add a little bit if you need to the tactics, but this time your question is, you're going to implement some of these actions. What will we do to make it happen? What are we going to tackle first? What are we going to do to make these things happen that you've been talking about? And what are we going to tackle first? But now you're saying, okay, what will we do? What are we going to do first of these things that you've talked about? What are we going to do first? What of these strategic opportunities, what of the tactics you've talked about, what are we going to tackle first? What are the most critical ones in your view? Okay, or 2, 1 or 2. Here's your final task. Look at the things you said were the most important. What do we need to focus on first? Now, the next part is, what's going to happen by the 15th of April? Okay, so that's a month from now. You've identified what the most important things are that we need to do to operationalize and implement the goals and the strategies that were identified through that planning process. What are we going to do by the 15th of April to be able to, if we had a list and wanted to check off, yep, done that one, yep, done that one. What are the things we're going to do by the 15th of April, and who's going to do it? Who's going to do what by then? To be able to check off a box by whatever it is that you said was the most important thing to do. What are we going to do first? You could have 1 or 2, 3 at the most. Whatever those things are at each table and online for each of the 3. What will we have accomplished? What will we have done? Who will have done what by April the 15th? Go for it. Wind up the conversation, and our board members who are here need pen in hand to be writing down what's going to happen by April 15th. And we're going to start by hearing from the group online with the question around impact. That was the first thing we looked at, was impact. So they're going to start first, and then we're going to hear from this table in the room. So people online, what are we going to do by April 15th with respect to impact?
The area that we felt was probably the one that could be dealt with maybe in some time frame sooner than later is around the whole aspect of documentation of things that are done by the club, projects, and so on, so that people who have some responsibility for that particular project, and I use the word project in a broad context, would know what has happened, what went well, what didn't go well, what to change, what to keep, and so on. So that's about as far as we got, Louisa, in the discussion.
That's okay. We'd had a very limited time. That's the challenge with assemblies. This is something that I normally spend about a day on when I work on with clubs on this. So this was the very quick version just to get started on this process. But that's great. Thank you very much. And I think we might hear something similar. I think I might have heard some conversation like that in the room. So I'm going to ask who's going to speak to this one. Peter. So Peter, you need the microphone.
All right, so our project, if you will, or action item was increase impact. And in order for us to increase impact in whatever it is we choose to do, we had said that we would first of all form a committee. It's really about the action body that we're developing. So we form a committee. That committee would be run by a chair/project manager. The project manager's responsibility is to coordinate all of the different things that our committee has to do to affect impact. The project manager, we said, if he or she doesn't have project management training, we'll give them project management training. Next thing was we need to define our committee structure. And so what that structure might be is we might give everyone sort of a title or a job that they have to do. We're delegating those jobs. We had also said that before we get involved in developing a project that our community might benefit from, that we have to go out to the community and do some community research to figure out whether or not find out what they need, or if we think we know what they need, whether in fact they really do need it, so that we're not going off half-cocked. So the ideal is that we form this structure and we understand what our project is. We understand what our goal is. We also set up measurement methods so that we can see as we're going forward whether we are accomplishing what we want to accomplish. And once we've done that, we've got our committee ready to go. Everyone's got their jobs. We've got a project manager. We've got a project the community wants. We've got ways of being able to measure. And then finally, we have a goal. We know that in order to achieve what we want to do, we know what that achievement has to be. At the very end, Remy was saying we need an impact assessment. In other words, when it's all said and done, and now it's April 15th, and we've got our whole group ready to go and ready to launch, we know that in the end, we are going to have an impact assessment. And whatever that impact is, that's the way it's going to be.
So I think what I'm hearing is that by April 15th, we need to have a new committee set up that's going to look at structure and look at the project kind of approach that we have from a project management perspective. And we're going to start the process of knowing how we're going to do impact assessments from a community perspective of the projects that we do. We're obviously not going to have community assessments done by April 15th, but we're going to have a process underway to figure out how to do that. Is that right? By the 15th of April? All right, so that's the April 15th thing. The board needs to take that into account to make sure that we look at those things. Reach, who's going to speak to Reach? Table 2. So this is the Reach, what we're going to do by April 15th, and then we'll go online next to hear what online said.
So by April 15th, we thought, as part of our engagement, both internally as members and externally, at least somebody should be able to visit a Rotary club or an Interact club and to talk to them about what we do, and possibly as part of our engagement drive, invite them to be part of a project. So for example, the upcoming environmental cleanup that we are planning, we could be doing April 15th is something we can check off on our box, and visit an Interact or a Rotary club. We also said that because we have too many projects and programs going on, by April 15th, we should be able to streamline our projects and programs, and then to sort of see the relevance of those projects and we haven't actually picked, did we? We haven't picked somebody who is going to do that. So that is up in the air. Hopefully we can figure that one out. And then the final one, we have alumni in our group, and we said that we should have a database of our alumni. And I'll be honest, I think Andrew was talking about who our alumni are, and he mentioned people who go, peace scholars that we sponsor, and other people of that nature, and to find out, where they are, what they're doing, how they are disciples for Rotary. So those are the things.
All right, so that's quite a few things again for April 15th, to have that alumni project underway and to look at having somebody identified that's going to visit, Rotaract and interact and be looking at some of those. Thank you. So those are very specific things for April the 15th. Okay, table 3. What do we have from table 3? The next one.
So we had number 3. We said the key things that we should be doing is defining what a partnership is. So what is a partner? Why would they be a partner? What compels them to be a partner? And then who are they? Who are our partners, and who are partners that potential partners out there? So that we can then form some kind of a plan to see if we can engage them. And then we've had various conversations around having an annual meeting of all the HRM clubs, or maybe it's just a meeting of the HRM clubs, and determine what comes out of it as a group, whether it becomes annual or not. To see, so at a minimum, what we should do by April 15th is to reach out to them and determine if there's any interest. And at some point, maybe we can jointly define a signature project, having done a needs assessment, and so on. So those are really the 2 actions that we came up with.
Okay, very specific board. So the first one is a little group of people to work on partnerships, defining what a partnership is, what the criteria would be, what that looks like, who we might want to talk to about being a partner. And secondly, initiate a meeting of all clubs, which conveniently we have the area governor as a member of our club. She had to leave, Ashley. But that's a convenient thing in terms of who might be asked to help us with that joint meeting. And that would be a great thing to do. We haven't done one in a while. All right, 4th table. Who's our speaker? Adrian's coming up to tell us a little bit about ADAPT and the action items for ADAPT and what we're going to do by April 15th.
So in our discussion, we saw this as sort of an inward seeking exercise, because it was how we were going to make our club more adaptable, maybe more resilient. So one of the suggestions came up was create an onboard process for all club leadership, so that chairs, board members, etc., like an actual process that says, okay, you're going to be the chair of a committee. This is what you're going to be responsible for. And to that end, we thought it was really important to create a structure for all committees, that there has to be a chair and a vice chair, so that there is some succession leadership in the planning. Ensure that our mentoring process is robust, particularly in those first 6 to 12 months that we have a member in the club. We lose too many members every year in our club. We gain lots of members, but we lose as many or more. A semi-annual review of all the projects and evaluation of those projects, so that that's presented to the club maybe in the fall and spring assembly. But there should be a process where members hear about what projects we have, hear about the level or lack of level of involvement in those projects, invite people to be in the projects, et cetera. But it should be done as part of the structure of the club's processes semi-annually. And that spring assembly could be a time where we would say, going forward in the next year, this may be the last year that we do this project or whatever. By the April 15th date is that we felt very comfortable that the structure of a chair and vice chair for all committees could be in place by April 15th.
For next year?
Yeah, for next year's. Yep.
Okay. Love that one. By April 15th, the chair and vice chair in place for all committees for next year. That would be a fantastic action tactic for April 15th, as were the other ones. Anybody online have anything around that one? Were your discussions related to those? Don't worry about April 15th if you didn't get to that, but you had a discussion of the, I think the first three. Just wondered if there was anything else that came up on your lists of things that we should be doing that we haven't heard.
Well, we didn't get as far as pegging those down till the April 15th timeframe, but
Right.
there were a bunch of ideas we had, but they just didn't get there.
So what were the top ideas? We still want to hear those.
Well, if we talk about enhancing participant engagement, we think the kind of partnerships, our interpretation of partnership was like what we have with Souls Harbor, with Joseph Howe and PALS and so on. Rather than expanding too much further, we need to be encouraging more members to be involved with those projects. So we do an excellent job with those. In volunteers, we tend to focus on like RibFest. We said we have volunteer groups that come in and do things at those events, and we should somehow look at how can we convert some of them into members, either as full Rotarians or as Rotaractors or whatever the case may be. Because there's quite a large group of people that come and do that volunteer work, recognizing that their group gets paid, of course. Scope of the committees, kind of ambivalent here, but the thought was rather than trying to get scope in the communities, rather than getting too broad spread across the communities, to focus on the ones we have and to encourage more members to get involved with those, rather than getting a whole bunch of smaller organizations going. So that was kind of the top line thoughts.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. So we've had a few people that were the particular note takers. I know Peter in the room was, Adrian was, I think Godfred, I think Chris, maybe, I'm not sure who else were kind of key note takers. And it sounds like Stephen, you were there. All of those notes, please, 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 need to be summarized so we don't lose anything. You're going to highlight your top one or two things with the April 15th things, but everything else should be there too. Right? Just so we don't lose the conversation, and that all needs to be able to come back to the board. So I'm going to ask you to do that by, I'd say 1 week, no later than a week, to have that typed up and shared so that we don't lose any of those notes. We've had some great ideas of things that need to happen by April the 15th, a few extra little committees and groups that need to be formed to make some things happen by then. And the charge now is to the board to take that to heart and to have a way to check in with us on April the 15th to say, here's what's happened. Here's what we said we were going to do. And here's what's happened by now, April 15th. And now here's what we're going to do by May the 15th to take it to the next level. And that becomes part of the role of the board to take us to that next 30 days. And then it will be next year's leadership team, which we want to have identified, chairs and co-chairs by April the 15th, who will then be starting to take that forward and giving us those updates.
Louisa, who do we send the notes to?
Who do we send the notes to? I think Godfred would be the person that the notes go to. And then Godfred and Dav will have to take those notes and figure out how they're going to tell us on April the 15th or the closest meeting to that, the next meeting, whatever day that is, how we've done and what the plan is for the next 30 days.
Okay. So there you have it. That's why Louisa, PDG Louisa, I'll repeat it again, is the most sought after speaker in Rotary circles, and even and outside Rotary circles. So you will agree with me that she did a fantastic job to this topic. So so you know, thank you very much. And I'll go back and also thank those who put together the strategic plan led by our own past president, Chris Humber here, and your team for putting together the strategic plan. And you know, Rotary is work in progress. It never ends, and so we can you know, now we have you know, our actions. We have, in fact, timelines. You know, April 15th. And don't record this, but I am going to visit a Rotary Club before April 15th or by the 15th, and again, it's this is off the record, just in case. And so again, I would like to thank you know, my friend here. You see that? I'm the chosen one. Yeah, I got a first from her before you did. So, yes. So, all right. So and those online, you haven't been forgotten. You know, thanks for you know, making time to attend the club assembly online. And I would like to thank Louisa for, you know, taking us through the implementation of the strategic plan. Yeah, a start. This is a start, and we already have action items that we can do, little things to show that we are putting all of the action plan we have in the strategic plan into action. So if by April 15th we are able to do some of the things that we task ourselves to do, then we would have been able to say we have achieved some aspects of the strategic plan. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Louisa, for coming, and thank you.
A huge thank you to Louisa Horne for leading this fantastic workshop on turning our strategic plan into action. Want to see how it works? You can find our strategic plan on our website under the About menu or the Member Info and Tools page. Stay tuned for updates on our progress. If you're inspired and want to get involved, we'd love to have you join us. Visit our website at rotaryhalifaxharbour.ca or find us on social media. We're always welcoming new people of action. None in the Halifax area? No problem. Visit rotary.org and use the Club Finder link to connect with a Rotary or Rotaract club near you. Thanks for listening to Cogs of Community, Rotary Halifax Harbour. We'll be back soon with more stories about the projects and people making a difference in our community.